Hey, what's up, lightboltjoe here. Today we're going to discuss the 2023 Paramount Plus original show, School Spirits. This is 8 episodes long for season 1. Season 2 has been announced. They haven't filmed it yet. This is based on a graphic novel series. Somehow, and I don't know how, but the licensing agreement allowed Netflix to start streaming it, even though it's a Paramount Plus original. And I'm curious what other originals from other streaming services have been licensed to be streamed on Netflix, because it's doing phenomenal on Netflix still after all these months, almost a year since it first premiered on Paramount Plus. I am blown away with how incredible this is. I did not expect the ending. I did not expect to get bombarded with 18 billion additional questions that are still unanswered after the episode 8, Madison's Body, named of course after Jennifer's body. There was a lot of homage to different past horror things throughout the series, throughout the season. This is one of the best shows I've ever seen. My mom and I watched it. We binged it. It was just so. The episode ends and you're like, what happens next? And you have to watch it, and you're forced to watch it. Milo Manheim is in this. Milo Manheim is in this. Christian Ventura is in this. Incredible actor. Peyton List is in this. She plays the main character of Madison Nears. And I only know Peyton List's work in the Wimpy Kid films, in the second and third Wimpy Kid films. Roger Gould's and Dog Days, she plays Holly Hills. So to see her as a 12-year-old, in those movies, and 12, 13-year-old in those movies, and then seeing her playing this elder, senior of high school who's really, in her mid-20s, it's just wild to be thinking of time in a linear perspective, because I remember seeing the Wimpy Kid films in theaters, and here we are now all these years later, and she's done incredible work. She's done plenty of projects, and she's a main act. She's a producer on the show as well, and it's really cool watching individuals that you've seen since they were kids grow to be these extremely talented individuals as adults as well. So it's just really cool seeing that. I wish everybody nothing but the best. Now, the plot of this is so wild because it's presumed of Madison is a new ghost at this school. So what happened? How did she wind up dying? Where's her body? Why can no one find her? Things, right? So the premise of these ghost rules is that if you die at the school, you then stay there. This is your purgatory forever, right? Somehow you can cross over, but it's still trying to test in the waters. How did Janet wind up crossing over, and how did Dawn finally wind up crossing over? Like, that was a whole emotional thing going on. But the last 5 minutes of this season were some of the wildest things I've ever seen, and it blew every question that you had throughout watching it out of the water, because you're like, so this is not a murder mystery. This is a what happens next story. It was so wild. It was so wild. I don't know how else to say it aside from wild. I could not believe. I sat. I was like, and I screamed at the TV. I could not believe the last 5 minutes of this season. It was just so insanely wild. And I don't want to spoil certain things because it's just so caught me off guard, and I don't get caught off guard very easily. And this caught me off guard very easily, and I don't know how else to say it aside from wild. Just in general, we'll just talk about general things. We'll just do general things. I've been a fan of Josh Zuckerman's for quite some time, talking about linear time, right? Just talking about how Peyton is now this full-fledged adult who's doing incredible work. Josh Zuckerman did a lot of stuff in the mid-aughts, late-aughts, and then stuff, right? So then now that he's in one of my favorite comedy films, Sex Drive. He plays this, horny teenager in there, trying to get across the country to visit this girl he's been talking to online to finally sleep with her, kind of a thing. Watching that Josh Zuckerman being now this adult, mid-30s, died in 1958, Mr. Martin character leading this circle of past life kids, right? It's just so strange to me because I grew up watching him because we were roughly the same age. So like I was a teen when he was a teen, and like watching him do teen stuff, and now he's a teacher character. It's just weird. It's just weird how he's now still in a high school, but now he's the teaching aspect of high school. Granted, he's a ghost in the school, but it's linear plot, right? And Milo can do anything. He's just so comedic. He's so on it with his improvising. He's just a wonderful human being, and he plays this wonderful '80s character. Nick Puglisi plays this character of Charlie, who's this '90s kid. Wonderful. You have different decades represented. There's '90s, '80s, '70s, '60s, and the original ones there were '58, which we learn throughout. But then there's other ghosts who we don't really like get many of the backstories. We get some of the backstories: the girl in the theater, the marching band kids, think they died in the aughts. The other two ghosts in the circle who never talk ever. We don't know anything about them. So there's a lot of like other stuff, like what happens with other ghosts. Do other ghosts cross over and the main ghosts don't know it, and things, right? So the thing is you as a ghost can't leave the property, right? Can't leave the school grounds. So like when you cross into the street, you then get warped back to the place where you died, kind of thing. And Maddie's character, Peyton's character of Maddie, talks to her best friend Simon, who's played by Christian. Christian plays Simon. There we go. And he can see her and talk to her in spots where there's a large death aura. So that means where a kid might have died. That's the only place where they can actually talk. But why can they talk? And how can they talk? Things, right? How can a ghost, interact with something in the real world? I'm gonna take some crazy glue, some Craggle. How can they interact with something in the real world? But if I'm a ghost, I can grab it, I can touch it, I can do stuff with it, I could use the glue if I wanted to. But in the real world, that glue is still on the table where I just picked it up from. So I'm not harming that world. I'm just integrating it into my world. It's interesting. It's interesting how they talk about, being able to change clothes as long as it was in their locker and stuff like that. The ghost rules were very similar to the UK's series Ghost, to the US's version of Ghosts. Incredible series that those are. But now that we have another iteration of ghost rules. And it's just cool. It's just very cool how this hashtag live your death thing comes about within regards to the show. But a lot of ghost shows are popping up and glorifying the afterlife. So you're dead. All right. What do you do now? Live your death. It's so nonchalant, and I love it. I love it because a lot of these mainstream properties are now starting to do this, which I find interesting, because it's not a glorification of death. It's not. It keeps up with that nonchalant. It's a matter of you only have two guarantees in life. You're born, and then you die. And what happens in between the two? Well, that's the adventure of life, if you will. But there's only two guarantees in life. So for properties now to not exemplify, but yeah, exemplify that last thing that everybody's afraid of. Afraid to say, oh my God, I'm gonna die, right? That whole fearful thing. A lot of people's fears in life is about death. And to have these ghosts talk about death as this nonchalant thing, it's like, all right, well, I'm here. What else am I gonna do? Right? And then Maddie's like, yeah, let's live your death. And it's just such a beautiful quote within the show. But then looking at these series in general that are now starting to come forward, it's not so scary as it was back in the day, because you now have different versions of different types of afterlife. You have the TV show Upload, which is an Amazon Prime show, incredible show. Robbie Amell is an incredible human being. We've talked about that numerous times. It's another after death show. What if you could upload your consciousness into this AI software and be an avatar in an afterlife? There's a lot of projects are starting this afterlife stuff, after death stuff. And it's cool because a lot of people are now starting to question it. And that's what's cool about life in general, is that you're never going to learn if you don't question. You have to question things. You have to understand that you don't understand everything. There are certain things in life that you'll never understand. And it's fine. You just have to not be a horrible human being along the way and say, no, I don't understand it, so that means it doesn't exist. That's not how that works. That's called privilege. That's what that is. Just because you don't understand something doesn't mean it isn't real. So to have various interpretations, various iterations of an afterlife, it's not just the fluffy castle in the clouds metaphor anymore. It's all possibilities, especially within regards to a limbo, a purgatory, an after death, a live your death. It's wonderful. It's mainstream now. I'm very happy that it's finally there. I've been waiting for something like this to come into fruition, and here it is. But even aside from the whole life and death part of the whole conversation of this show in general, this is one of the best shows I've ever seen. It just keeps you on your toes. You keep guessing, and the reveals at the end, bro. I did not guess. Did not guess. It is so incredibly wild, and I cannot wait for the second season. I cannot wait to see what happens next. I'm so proud of all of the cast involved. An incredible, incredible show. School Spirits, Season 1. On to the next review. Which mahalo.